Hello and welcome to one more episode of Give Me the Mic. So last time I shared a video where I took everyone through my process to automate 90% of the things I do on YouTube, which basically can apply to so many things and so many arenas, including business and personal endeavors. So that video did really well, and I got so many comments and requests to focus on the website AI-based ChatGPT basically bot that I created and I showcased. So this is the video today, and stick through the video because at the end you're gonna have a really nice free gift. And with that, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so fundamentally this bot works through basically two tools or two platforms. First one is Replit, which is an IDE or basically an environment to develop some code. It's not meant to host it fully, but it works. And what I did on Replit is basically looking into the documentation of OpenAI API and basically sharing that back to ChatGPT and asking it to help me code it as a non-coder. I got a very simple code that basically calls upon the API of OpenAI, creates the assistant, and then has some more code lines that basically create what they call a flask, which is basically a communication point. So basically what's happening in Replit is just a two-way type of communication, and with a link which is available online that I will connect it to something else later on. Now, today it's very easy to do these things through a service. There's so many services that will just integrate with OpenAI and generate the bot for you. Or they have the API, their own API in the back end, or they ask you to provide your own API key and do the work for you. But here, you can do it yourself. And I've tried it. Although Replit is not a proper hosting site, I actually ran the code, I kept it up and running, and it remained with no hiccup for weeks at end. Eventually, I had to turn off the bot because it comes with a cost, especially by using the Assistant API. And here in the bot I created, I'm using the GPT-4 Turbo, which is a little bit more expensive, and I don't really need it. So for me, it was just something to experiment with and see if I can pull it through, and I did. So once we establish this code on Replit, which basically establishes that kind of communication to receive messages and send it to the assistant, and then get the response from the assistant and send it back to the uplink or flask or whatever term you want to use, then we can move to the next tool, which is VoiceFlow. So VoiceFlow, to my understanding of the tool, it focuses on creating these kind of assistants and bots. Now, I've seen natively you can basically integrate ChatGPT within VoiceFlow itself, so you don't need to do it through Replit. Here, the only thing I'm paying for with this kind of setup is basically my API key. I'm not paying for a subscription on neither Replit or VoiceFlow. So that works out well for me, because on Replit, as long as you keep it public, the code, and you do not have the rights to deploy or make it private basically, you can work with the free version of Replit. And for VoiceFlow, you have a limit of 2 bots that you can deploy in the free version. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think also there's a delay, so it's a bit slower if it's on the free version. I read through the offerings of the different tiers. I didn't see that, but I'm assuming this is the case. Nevertheless, my bot works fine, and for me, it's not a big deal. Okay, so let me start with Replit. I'm gonna walk through the code. Again, I keep repeating that I'm not a coder. I'm someone like so many today joining this no-code kind of world, which is, in a funny way, is introducing us to code. Simple code, but something that gets us to do more with the tools that are available today. So there's 2 windows I'm going to show you. One that the one I used to run my own bot, and the one that is just basically the template out of my code I created. And I'll tell you why. So this is the code template. Basically, it's my code. I just created a template copy out of it, and you'll know at the end. But basically, I'll take you through the code step by step and what I understood each step does based on ChatGPT's explanation. The only thing you have to provide to this code is the OpenAI API key, which here you can see, let me move myself, which here you can see in what is called a secret. So if you navigate in Replit to the left side of the panel, and you scroll down, you're going to find this. If this doesn't open automatically at your side, just click secrets, and then this will pop up. And basically, because it's a free version and because the code is public, I had to figure out this. Basically, I asked ChatGPT and it told me there's a feature in Replit which is a secret. And I think this is a Python thing. So basically, this is a way for me to introduce the API key to the code while it remains secret or inaccessible to others who will have access if they look through Replit database. Probably my code can be seen by anyone. So simply what you need to do here is go to OpenAI. So and getting an API key will require you to have a paid plan. So you go to the OpenAI website and there's so many options. You've seen this before, the assistants, and you can go to the API keys. You can see all my keys that I use across different tools or platforms or whatever. So you have to just click create key. You're going to get a key, copy it. Do not paste it on a document or a note. If you want to keep it, make sure you keep it somewhere secure using tools like 1Password or else, because once you copy it here and close the window, you cannot recover it from here again. If you lose it, that's fine. You can just delete it or delete the API key that you created and create a new one and again introduce it to the code. So let's head back to Replit. So let's go through the code now step by step. And again, I'm not a professional coder to explain things. This is my learning that I got developing this between the documentation and ChatGPT. And by the way, if you use this method, it's an amazing way to learn. So always do two things from my experience. Ask ChatGPT to explain every block of code that it provides for you, and ask it to always provide in the code debugging steps. And basically debugging steps is printing certain steps where you can see either something worked or didn't work. It makes, I think, even for developers, their life easier, but for someone who doesn't really understand code or didn't spend my whole life basically developing, it's much easier for me to understand where things are going right and where things are going wrong. So the first part is simply libraries that are needed in steps throughout the code. So you have to import them. And this is the way it's done. The main ones here is basically the Flask, which is the uplink that will keep communicating with VoiceFlow. Then you can see OpenAI and then functions. Anything around functions, I guess. Okay, so the first block is basically checking the version of the model of OpenAI. So from my understanding, I think it's a necessary step. I saw it in the documentation and I got it from ChatGPT. But basically, this is a checkpoint to make sure that you are working with the proper version of OpenAI. And you can see here, I have print OpenAI version is compatible. So when the code runs, I will know that the version is proper, everything is good. Then you can see the Flask app, and you can see also when I talk to ChatGPT, I ask it to always give me a small explanation just for me to understand what this is doing. Then you have the client, basically it's defining the client, which is the OpenAI key. Then you have the assistant ID. So this is a function to create an assistant. And this is why I will show you later the one that I use and I ran. Because once you run the code, it will build an assistant for you, and that assistant will get an ID, and that ID will become a reference in this code to always interact with that same assistant. So it will not keep creating assistants over and over again. So it will create a new assistant for you one time, and then every time you run this code, even if you stop it and run it again, it will always refer to that assistant. Next, you have the start conversation thread. So what I understood is you have to create a thread ID for the code and later on the assistant to track each session. So as you can imagine, if there are multiple people talking to the bot on your website, OpenAI's assistant will need to basically tell which user is discussing what with the bot. So it will have to segregate all these conversations through that thread ID. So there's always a start and then there's a chat thread. So basically it starts, it gets an ID, and then that ID is linked to the chat, which can allow both incoming messages to ChatGPT or the assistant, and then outgoing responses. And you can see here, generate a response. So you have the route chat, here you have start. So both together basically start and continue the conversation. And again here I'm putting print new thread created with ID, and then print error missing thread ID, just for me to know that things are going in the right direction. Again, print a received message. This is the user input, and you don't need to worry about these things. They run in the background. You just run it on Replit and close the window. It will keep running. And here basically when a thread ID is created, it runs the assistant, and the assistant has an ID to track and manage that conversation until it's complete. Now the code through the run status will keep checking if basically the conversation is ongoing or it's stopped. If it's stopped, or basically the window I think is closed, it will give it as complete, the status as completed, and then it will go to sleep. Basically no activity is happening. It will keep checking every 1 second until someone else comes in and creates a new thread, a new message. It will go back and be activated and start giving responses to that user. Finally, we have the run server, which is basically the Flask. So we saw previously the definition of that function, the Flask. Now this is, I think, the actual uplink that later on Replit will translate it into a URL that we will use later on to connect to VoiceFlow. Okay, there are some considerations that you need to understand before you run the code. So you can see here on the left side, there are files created for this project. Bot-knowledge.docs. This is a Word document basically. This document is where you want to provide any kind of information for the assistant to use to be able to answer questions to your user on your behalf based on your company, your business, yourself. For example, for my bot, I had a bot on my personal blog. I gave it information about myself, my career, my character. So people who go to my blog can basically ask questions about me. So use it to your needs, but you have to create that document. If you want to use my code, you have to name it exactly the same, so it will not affect how the code is running, because that name is referred within the code. So you will have to delete this bot knowledge. You'll not get anything out of it because this is just a placeholder I put in there. And because this is public, you can see it's encrypted. So whatever information you put in there, it will not be visible with the code to others within the community, which is a good thing. So you click on the 3 dots, you click delete, you remove it, and then create your own document, put whatever information you want in that document. But again, I want to remind you, retrieval function in the assistant. Also, I think in the equation, it's linked to the costing of each call. So just keep that in mind. So put the necessary information in that document. Don't inflate it with lots of knowledge. And then you can click again these 3 dots on the top and upload a file. Upload your file here and you're good to go. The last thing I want to show you is how do we basically tell or prompt our assistant to act in the way we want. So we have to go for this one to functions here. And this is basically a very small code that gives the assistant its instructions in plain terms. So you can see here, I kept for you, write your OpenAI assistant instructions here. One-time activity. As I told you in the beginning, once we run this code, the assistant is created and the prompt and the instructions will always be there. So you do it once. Before you run the code, come in here, delete this part, and write whatever prompt you need or instructions you need to give your assistant. So for example, you're running a gardening business. So you can tell it, you are my assistant to run my business. This is the city or area where I provide my services and so forth, the rates, everything else. Or you can keep some of it in the document. And here it mentions the model. So this is the new model, GPT-4 Turbo. And you can see the function, the type is retrieval, because it will go back to this document and retrieve information. I didn't try it to do it with the 3.5. I'm pretty sure it will work. The only thing, GPT 3.5 is much cheaper, less smarter, and it doesn't have a retrieval function. So you will have to basically give it everything, all the information within the prompt here. Consider it, play around with it. Maybe this is what you actually need. And the model name, you can look it up from OpenAI website. Just copy it, paste it here for the one that suits you from GPT 3.5. You can just, for testing purposes, do it with this one and later decide. I can tell you this is expensive. When I put it on my website, I put a post about what I did on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on many social media, and people didn't disappoint. People started talking to the bot, and quickly I hit my limit on OpenAI. You can set a limit where basically this is where you get an alert, and then this is where basically it will stop providing the services. So you will not exceed a certain budget that you put for yourself on a monthly basis for the API. I don't use the API, I just luckily I put that limit because I didn't expect so many people to talk to it. Apparently they did. So this is something for you to keep in mind before you deploy this and go off to your life. And this is running in the background on your website. It has a cost associated to it. So understand the cost, understand the token models, and then decide, is this something okay with you? Will it provide the value for you personally or the business that you run? Or you can maybe select a cheaper one like GPT 3.5, which could be good enough for whatever reason you're creating the bot for. Okay, so now we ran the code is running, and I'll show you a demo at the end. Don't worry about that. And then we go to VoiceFlow. So VoiceFlow, you can go there, you can get a free account, sign up, log in. Again, at the end, there's a gift. None of this is something you're gonna do yourself. Everything will be given to you on a silver plate. So this is the template of VoiceFlow, and basically VoiceFlow is kind of you can call it a logic stack for the bot, how it operates. And you can see here, I didn't try it. Maybe some of you can do that. You can see here AI, I don't know, they're using OpenAI logo, so I assume there is a functionality to integrate within VoiceFlow the OpenAI API assistant. I'm pretty sure that will not be free. This is a free account, and basically there are very simple steps. The first step is where you can call it like the hook, where it grabs the first interaction with the bot, which is usually someone clicking on the icon of the bot and it pops up. And I think this is when it will go and get a thread ID. Now, next step is basically an input. You can put a default input where it prompts the user to give it a question so the bot can take it forward and respond to it. You can just click on this one and you can have some variants. So for example, for my bot, I put, "Hi, I'm Samer's digital twin. How can I assist you?" And then after that, it will capture the response from the user. It will again send it back to the flask or the code. Let's call it the code. It will take it to OpenAI. OpenAI will generate a response. That response will come back to this block here. Let me just move it around. So this block will get it back to basically the original block where basically the user will see it, and so forth. So what you can see, which is interesting, we defined two things in the code, right? The start of the conversation and the thread, and then the chat. So the start is where the thread ID is generated, and the chat where basically the thread ID is there, and that communication flow is happening uplink and downlink. So you can see here what you need to do when you get this template is just click here. You will get a URL, and I'll show you now how to get it from Replit, and then place it here. The link will not include this /start. So you'll have just to put the URL, highlight this part and just paste your URL here. And the same here is for the chat. So the same link, not a different link. You just highlight it, paste it here, and this should be ready to go. Now there are failure options. Consider it the code version of debugging. So if at the start of the thread it doesn't happen, the user will get failed to start. And even at the response side, if something goes wrong with the API, the user will get failed. So you can modify this if you want to be something more appealing. If a failure happens and there's a user on the chatbot communicating with it, at least it can be something that looks more professional than just failed. So to show you how I take the link, I'll have to show you the session that I actually ran for my bot. So once you run the code for the first time, you will get this JSON file, which is basically the assistant ID. So if you click on it, you're gonna see your assistant ID here. If you go to OpenAI and look at your assistants, you're gonna find one of them, usually named untitled, with this same ID there. So now I'll run the code. Before that, let me show you. You can see here is my prompt. It's a big one. You can see I have the knowledge base, and you can see here it's a different story. It's a big encrypted document, and basically everything is in place for me in my code just to run my bot. So simply hit run and see the magic happening. What this tells you here, that your code is running, there's no error. When you do the things I showed you step by step, this is what you're gonna get. Now, once you have this, there's two ways to get that link. And you can see there's a window that will pop up here called Web View. If you don't see Web View, you can go to Tools on Replit, scroll down to the bottom, and you can see it here. You can click it, it will open up here. But usually once you run, it will pop up automatically on the right side of Replit. You can go to New tab, either click it, and it will take you to a window. Nothing will be shown there. It's just the link, and you copy the link from there, or you right click on the new tab and click copy link. Now let's go back to VoiceFlow and insert our links. So this is the first one. Make sure you delete the second backslash here. Again, the same for the chat one. So let me actually take out the backslash here. So now it should be ready to run. The nice thing about this is you can test it before you deploy it. So hit run here, which is the play button, and say run test. It's a bit slower when you are testing, which is fine. So you can see already it told me ask Samer anything. So this is this block and it's highlighting this area. So let me ask it a question. So I got a failed. Interesting. So I know why I got a failed. So I just quick look here, and you can see the link that I put had HTTPS twice. So it was my mistake when pasting. So I'll just remove it. Let me just check. The other one is fine. Yeah, that looks fine. So let's try again. So see, it's always good to test it before you deploy it. Again, let's ask the same question. Who is, and voila, we have a response, and you can see it's a long one. You can see here even it gave us a message that API call successfully triggered, and then it gave an answer. Sometimes I noticed it will give you a reference similar to the ones that you get in ChatGPT or OpenAI. Not a big deal for me. It will not be clickable on the bot, but it will be like a kind of a weird symbol that appears at the end. So it's working. From here, you have a running bot. You can place it wherever you want. Website, tool. We did the bot, we tested the bot, and now we want to deploy it. So to deploy it is very easy. And this is where VoiceFlow is really good. It's very easy to deploy a bot and it looks good. So what you do is you just click publish, and then you can give it a name, which is optional. Let's click publish. And now you can see it's published. What you will do next is just click on embed widget. And this is the code, the HTML code you have to copy and insert or inject into your website. Depending on your hosting service, you can simply Google it, how to inject code or add code for a bot. In my so-and-so hosting service, you'll find many people probably talking about it. So this is just a demo of how it will look. You can basically change the look and feel of the whole things. So for me, I did it in the color theme of my website. So red and white and black. And you can even introduce your own logo. Once you're happy with it and how it looks, just click copy code and go and inject it, and you will have a running live active bot that you can offer to your customers and whomever is your target audience for this. I might be wrong, but a working bot gives me the right to ask you to please subscribe to my channel to keep getting similar content. So for the gift. So since I started to show people basically what I do in terms of automation, AI, small codes, I actually started doing that just to be able to have a full-time job and then manage YouTube on top of that with family life and everything else. And apparently people like that. So I basically built up a second niche that I'm focusing on. Probably it's getting bigger every day. I had a blog. It was something very simple, so I created something better so I can deliver more value to you even beyond YouTube. So you will find in the description a link for my website, which is Give Me the Mic Official. You can see my picture in my suit and jiu-jitsu. Why? Because both are my personas. And if you go to store, so here you can know about me, you can find the latest about my YouTube, the books I read. You can contact me if you need to, and then you can read my blogs, and you can go to the store. Now you can see this nice button here. It's exclusive access content, and this is basically free content I will offer to people who are part of my community. When you click it, you're gonna have to register, set up an account, and here you'll find, guess what? You'll find the bot tool I created and I showcased now, and basically it's for zero. It's free basically. You buy it, you will get an email with a link that will give you a document which will have step-by-step kind of way how to do everything I showed in this video. It will have the video itself probably, and then it will have two links, one for the Replit template where you go and throw in your API key, and one for the VoiceFlow template where you just throw in the Flask link that you will get as I showed you, and then take the HTML code and place it somewhere else and you're good to go. Now, if you want to explore more, feel free to do that. I have created things I use every day and people are asking me to provide it to them. So some were asking me to provide services, some were asking me to sell them things. So I said, why not? I created this store. Now, disclaimer, everything is something I genuinely believe any of you can build it yourself. Now, the products I have on my store are probably something that you will buy for two reasons. Either you want to buy back your time, you don't want to go through the hassle that I went through to bring these things to the table, or you just want to support the channel. And in both, it's fine. But still, if you do not want to pay money for this, just keep following the channel. I will keep giving free content, free tools, free ideas, whatever I come up with. It's a journey, and thank you for joining me for the ride. And throughout my journey, I will learn, share my knowledge. Hopefully you will learn with me, and I'll keep putting whatever I learn as free content, and some of it will be paid content. Because in some areas, I'm spending crazy amount of times from my personal life just to develop that for you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy the product. Once you get it, give me your feedback. Tell me, why are you creating a bot and for what reasons? I'm always interested to learn more about you. And if you want to see my previous video, which is basically how I automate 90% of the things I do beyond my career, I will put up a card for the video that you'll probably see here or here. And with this, thank you very much and goodbye.